Ever since Ben Heck's original handmade Atari VCS Portable in 2000, the dream of a mass-market handheld version of America's most successful classic console has seemed tantalizingly close. And there's just something about the idea of holding and playing an Atari 2600 in your hand that feels exciting. After all, these are some of the first video games a lot of people ever played. Well, the day is finally here. Or really was here a couple of months ago. I admit I'm a little late to this party again. But there actually aren't that many videos out there about this thing, so I figure one more probably couldn't hurt. This is the Atari Flashback Portable, and I'm going to take a look at it right now. Now, I mentioned that this device has been out for a little while, so I just want to acknowledge a couple of other people that have also been covering it in the meantime. First, if you haven't seen it already, go watch John Hancock's excellent review of this same device when you're done here. He's a legendary collector. He's got far more games than I do, probably more than anybody else in the world. So subscribe to his channel also if you don't. It's just a fun thing to watch. Also, Flojo Mojo in the Atari Age forums has been keeping an up-to-date FAQ on this device. And as part of that FAQ, ArenaFoot, also from the Atari Age forums, has been keeping an up-to-date file of all of the games that work with this device. So as soon as you're done here, go check that out. As is often the case, this new release of a classic system is brought to you by AtGames, who have also brought us countless previous flashback home systems as well as the odd handheld, including the ultimate portable game player, aka the Sega Genesis Portable that I unboxed on my channel a little while back. I bought my Flashback Portable from Amazon. It came in basically the same box as my Genesis Portable player, obviously updated with Atari graphics and games. There was an earlier version of this box that had Space Invaders on the front, but at this point I think you're almost guaranteed to get the Frogger Centipede box. Apparently there were some licensing issues with Space Invaders, and the game is not one of the 60 built into the handheld. Future collector's item, I guess. It's a little disconcerting how AtGames includes basically no packaging at all other than the egg carton box insert, which only loosely holds the system. It's free to flop around between the insert and the outer box, and there's no foam or even plastic bag to protect it. Luckily mine wasn't damaged or scratched at all, and there's at least a screen protector. Unlike the Genesis Portable, the screen protector on the Flashback Portable is clear, and it's not obvious. You can probably even leave it on if you're really worried about scratching your screen. Inside the box is the unit, some basic black and white instructions, and a charging cable for the rechargeable battery. The charging cable is a standard mini USB, so if you lose yours, chances are you have about 50 other ones stuck in your couch cushions or ready to attack from the floor next to your bed. The unit itself is almost exactly the same as the Genesis Portable, just in this black and orange color scheme that looks pretty neat up close, and somehow avoids being too Halloween-y. It is the color scheme of the original Atari VCS. Interestingly, it still has the same 6 buttons too, despite the 2600 joystick only having 1, but 4 of the others replicate the front switches on a 6-switch 2600, with the last button being pause instead of reset. I think that's a pretty good idea given the chance of hitting one of these by mistake. The much stiffer start button doubles as reset, and you'd really have to hit it with purpose. There are a couple of obvious differences to the Portable Genesis, and there's really no way to spin them as good ones. For one thing, the battery is no longer removable. Also, the screen is somewhat smaller and has slightly worse viewing angles. I'm not sure if this is coming through on camera, but it's difficult with the Flashback Portable to even see the same color through both eyes. The viewing angles really are that small. Since so many 2600 games have black backgrounds that are most prone to contrast shift, it can be a little distracting. Sound is another sore point, as it often is on AtGames portables. It's tinny and shrill and easy to turn up louder than the system's speaker can really handle. At low volumes it's fine, but you really need headphones to hear things properly. One thing about the 2600 is that while it didn't have very advanced sound, what it did have was powerful and bassy. So it's difficult for the Flashback Portable to reproduce it properly. The Flashback Portable also suffers from the same issue that people went nuts over in my Genesis Portable video. The sounds that it makes are about a full tone lower than the actual console. Honestly, I don't think this is at all noticeable in real life, and in fact I haven't seen it mentioned in other reviews. I think us real old-timers are actually more forgiving of stuff like this. Still, I was impressed with the build quality of my Genesis Portable for $30, and I'm still pretty impressed with the quality of the Flashback Portable for $50. No, it doesn't feel premium by any means, but it feels well put together. The buttons have a nice snap to them, the D-pad works well and never seems to get stuck or reflect false inputs, and overall it's just really comfortable to hold and use. It does feel similar to other cheap Chinese knockoff handhelds in some ways, but if you do think of it that way, it's probably the best cheap Chinese handheld you'll ever use. The one real build criticism I have of both AtGames handhelds I own is the power switch, which feels like it's going to break off from the first use. Both of mine feel slightly different. One is way too stiff in one direction and loose in the other, while the second is just loose both ways. But both power switches feel really cheap. The games included with the Flashback Portable have a pretty nice mix of stuff, and I like the look of the menu a lot, with the original box art. It's kind of annoying to navigate at first because I want it to be a fully directional menu, but instead of moving to the next column when you hit right or left, it goes to the next page. I've done this about 100 times. The sound it makes as you're scrolling through also does get a little grating, to be honest. By the way, you'll probably be tempted to play Frogger first, as it is featured on the box, and if you do, you may have a little senior moment as you try to remember if this is what 2600 Frogger really looked like. In fact, this is what 2600 Frogger really looked like. The version that comes with the system was made specifically for the Flashback hardware. It's interesting to see what the hardware can really do, and it's very close to the arcade version, but it is missing the music, and that's a big part of this game. Obviously not every game Atari is famous for is represented here, but you can add your own via SD card. Like the Genesis Portable, the Atari Portable's not 100% compatible, so some games just don't work. But a huge number do. I always want to say billions and billions, but in truth it's more like hundreds. Still a lot of games. And unlike the Genesis Portable, which has minor problems with a lot of games, the Flashback Portable seems to either run a game or it doesn't. Whatever it does run, runs pretty much perfectly. But then, the Flashback Portable is emulating a much simpler system. Now, control is sometimes an issue, specifically in paddle control games. The Atari 2600 came with both joysticks and paddles, and even some of the games built into the Flashback Portable required paddles on the original system. There's no good way to emulate a paddle on a D-pad. The Flashback Portable seems to try by just making your on-screen avatar move really fast, but games like Circus Atari and Breakout are basically impossible to play on this thing. Joystick games play fine, of course, possibly even better with a D-pad, though it's really down to personal preference. The 2600 joystick was an 8-way digital stick though, so a D-pad is a perfect facsimile. There's a composite output port if you want to play games on a TV, and you can just use a regular 3.5mm to RCA audio cable for this, which is handy because it means I can show you some direct comparisons between games on the Flashback Portable and those same games running on an original system. I'll add the disclaimer that I'm using my 7800 for the original games rather than my 4-switch 2600 due to a misplaced power adapter, and the 7800 does have a reputation for worse video output. That said, the Flashback Portable is just using a different type of output than either the 2600 or 7800, and it should theoretically be better. In some ways it clearly is, though I don't like the weird chroma crosstalk that looks like static dot crawl. Also, you can definitely hear the difference in tone and pitch in these comparisons. Now, I've heard some people complain that AtGames doesn't include an HDMI output on these handhelds, and I agree that would be nice, but I think it's a little unrealistic at this price. Of course, the question is always, would you pay $10 or $20 more for that? And I'm sure the answer is yes for a lot of people. It might even be yes for me, I don't know, but every manufacturer has to make decisions about what price point's ultimately the most profitable, and $50 is obviously just where AtGames thinks the sweet spot is. I don't begrudge them for that. So do I recommend the Atari Flashback Portable? Well, heck yes I do, if you're already into the Atari 2600. I don't really recommend every kid in America go out and buy one of these. The games on the Atari 2600 don't always hold up. I feel like the system at this point, and this may be a little controversial, but it is kind of held together with the glue of nostalgia. So you really need to be feeling that for the system. You have to have experience with it. You have to know the games, know what they're like. If you do, then having a portable version of it like this is just something you've probably been waiting for all your life, and now here it is. That said, for me, a lot of the appeal of the Atari 2600 is tactile. It's the look of the wood grain, the heavy weight of the system, the feel of a cartridge or a controller in your hand, that old school nostalgic feeling you get from all of that. And you're not going to get that from a handheld. So for me, I'm probably still going to play most of the time on the original consoles, but it is an amazing thing to finally have it in handheld form, and in a good handheld form. It's not perfect, but it is an amazing little system, and I definitely recommend anyone who's already into the Atari 2600 go out and buy one today. That's about it for now. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the Atari Flashback Portable. If you did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you don't already, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.